Let's move on to the Small Business Growth Index, SBGI. It reveals that South Africa's small businesses are entering 2026 with cautious optimism. Around 59% of SMEs expect moderate to strong growth over the next 12 months, while 92% plan to expand locally. 72% plan to expand nationally, and 45% aim to explore export opportunities. Additionally, 67% are looking to strengthen their online presence. For more on this, we're joined on the line by Vignesh Subramani, Interim Managing Executive of SME Business at Absa Business Banking. A very good afternoon to you, Vignesh. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, Thami. Thanks for having me, and good afternoon to all of our viewers.
Great. Let's start off with an understanding and an overview of South Africa's small business outlook for 2026 and some of the findings of the Small Business Growth Index.
Thanks so much for highlighting those key salient points that came out of the index. Maybe a little bit of background to the index itself, Thami. Last year, as Absa and as the Bank of the Entrepreneur, we felt that there was a gap in the data that we have around a real-time indication of how the SME sector in South Africa is doing overall, the health of the sector, what is the outlook of small business from a confidence perspective, how they're feeling, as well as the overall sentiment. And so the beginning of last year, we partnered with the South African Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Bureau of Market Research, to develop what is today known as the SBGI, or the Small Business Growth Index, which is really, to a large extent, a first of its kind within the South African context. That gives us a real-time view of those three sort of dimensions I spoke about earlier. When we ran, we do this twice a year. So we ran it in the beginning of last year, and we had published the first report around the end of H1. And then towards the end of the year, we ran the second, the wave, and we published an updated report. So we do this twice a year. We're also building somewhat of a trend so that we can see how this is trailing over time. What the index has shown us towards the end of last year is that as SMEs go into 2026, they're going out with a higher level of confidence. But to your point exactly, it is cautious optimism. Is it outright confidence? Not necessarily. What they're saying is that they are optimistic, but they still do need support going into 2026. What we've seen is that there are a lot of green shoots in our economy at the moment. You think about 200 plus days without load shedding. You think about the interest rates that we find ourselves, at the moment, whether it be the rand, US dollar rates, etc. There are a lot of green shoots in the economy that will help SMEs this year. But what the index is also clearly telling us is that SMEs are still saying we do need support as we look forward, and we have a responsibility to support them.
And on that very note, it noted that 90% of the businesses that you surveyed intend to expand their businesses. You spoke to that a moment ago. But there is still the consistent problem of a lack of access to financing. How will they be able to grow their market without adequate financial support?
It's such a crucial point, probably even more crucial for South African businesses. As you've mentioned, the index has shown us that approximately 70% of small businesses will require funding in the first half of this year. When we spoke, I have the privilege of speaking to a lot of small business. I spent the better part of last year engaging with a lot of small business owners all over the country. Previously, there was this level of conservatism. Not necessarily being willing to take on that finance to do that expansion, or, bulk up my fleet or buy equipment, or, even use funding for working capital. What we're seeing now is that there is a definite need to say, we're feeling better about, the outlook, and so we're going to need funding to help us. Access to funding is also an outcome of a strong relationship with your financial partner. And what we're seeing more and more is that this need to have keep your financial institution, or more specifically your banking partner, your banking institution, very close to you in those financial decisions that you want to make, as opposed to trying to solve for it yourself. What I've seen as well in engaging with lots of businesses, and South African businesses specifically, is that South African entrepreneurs are very resourceful, and they try and solve, the problems that they face on their own. I was sitting with a client last week where I said, she took me through her business journey, and she's built a great business, at some point understanding it, but it feels like you think you need to do this on your own, whereas they are, we are here to support you. And so keeping that relationship really sound and keeping them part and parcel of that financial decision helps in the funding process, because businesses can't do it on their own.
No, certainly they cannot. It really is a whole entire ecosystem that feeds off each other. And talking about that, the index shows that when we look at the survival rate, 38% of the businesses surveyed believed that they could survive for more than a year under cost pressures without external support. Conversely, then, I think it means 62%. What did they say? That they can survive or will not be able to survive? What were the results there? And also, if you could talk to us about how these businesses aim to ensure their survival.
So there are two elements to this, Thami. One is that a good majority of the businesses are saying that they're looking at moderate to strong growth. About 68% looking at moderate to strong growth going into 2026. There is still a fair share that are saying, in order for us to survive, we're going to need help. And that help takes the form of not just financial support, but non-financial support as well. Often access to finance is a big element that we must, work on in the South African context, but the non-financial support elements are just as important. If I can use a couple of examples, one is this piece around mentoring, coaching, through the relevant enterprise development programs, but also elements like creating access to markets, being able to digitize your business, your products and solutions, meeting your customers where they are, not just being able to showcase your products and solutions digitally, but also being able to accept payment for those products and solutions. So we're seeing the shift towards about 2/3 of businesses saying, I have to create a digital online presence, but I must also be able to do that by accepting payments digitally. That's the second. The other element is around infrastructure concerns. So when we think about load shedding and we think about this 200+ days without the issue of load shedding, which has put small businesses in a lot of pressure over the recent years, that concern has now shifted to water security. And with a lot of the businesses that we're engaged in, we also see that business owners, and particularly small business owners, are starting to think about water just the way they thought about electricity a few years ago, and thinking about backup systems and storage and supply. The last element is around the support from a sector perspective. We put SMEs under one umbrella and we think we kind of treat all of them the same way. Depending on the sector that you find yourself within, that there are nuances that the SMEs face. It's really important to have sector specialists, trade specialists from the banking, from your financial partner, from your financial institution, actually help you and guide you with those nuances that you're faced with within those specific sectors, whether it be transport and logistics or trade or whatever it may be. So that sector expertise is also really, really important, and that support is available for small businesses.
Vignesh Subramani, we thank you so much for your insight and the amazing support that Absa Bank is bringing to small businesses and impacting and influencing their growth as well. We thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Thami. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That's Vignesh Subramani. He is the Interim Managing Executive of SME Business at Absa Business Banking. Thank you, sir.